Good morning, committee. This is Thursday. I think it's the 15th of April. And this is the Senate Agricultural Committee meeting. This morning, we were going to do 434 run through with Michael O'Grady tomorrow morning, but he couldn't be with us because of a previous engagement. So, but can be with us this morning. So we're going to start off with 434. And we have Carrie with us and Kanika from the Agency of Ag. In they're in the meeting room. They're blocked out right now. There's Kanika. Good morning, Kanika.
Good morning.
And before we get started on 434, I just wanted to let the committee know that we did in approach yesterday, we did discuss S100 and the funding for that breakfast program, universal breakfast program, and the committee did support that change. So that, and I relayed that message to Brian by phone. I never got him, but I left him a message yesterday stating that we had talked about that and supported that in approach. So hopefully that bill will be coming up. I don't know if it's tomorrow or if it'll be just Tuesday. So anyways, we have Michael O'Grady with us and Kanika and Carrie, and we'll have Michael run through 434 with us and talk about the side by side. And Carrie and Kanika, yeah, we kind of have a round table discussion as we're doing these bills. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or kind of jump in. But anyways, so we'll get started. Good morning, Michael, and looks pretty one-sided, your side by side until we get to the end, but you want to run through that for us?
Sure, and I will work off of the committee's website, and so everyone should be following along at home, if that's okay.
Yeah, we got your
Okay.
email, and we all have a copy. I don't know if Carrie and Kanika have a copy of it, but they can go to our website. You have that, Kanika? Yeah. Okay, I guess we're good to go, Michael.
So yesterday you asked me to put together a side-by-side of H434, the Agricultural Innovation Board bill, with Secretary Moore's email with an alternate proposal. As the chair already referenced, it seems like Secretary Moore's proposal it was an email, right? So she didn't have a lot of specific detail in her proposal. I think what she proposed could be fleshed out if that's what the committee wanted to do. It's not that she didn't provide information, it's just that it was in an email form and needed to be fleshed out. So the first thing is the authority of the board, the Agricultural Innovation Board and H434 has significant authority, including making recommendations from the Soil Health and Payment for Ecosystems Working Group, the Vermont Climate Council, and other relevant recommendations, also including about the use of and exposure to pesticide and synthetic fertilizers in order to protect soil biology, human health, and the environmental health. Advise the General Assembly and the Executive with regard to legislation for pest control measures and integrated pest management. Recommend to the Secretary of Ag rules or legislation for the regulation of treated articles. Recommend practices to reduce the generation of waste associated with plastic and farming. Incent farmers or farming practices that are looking to reduce the use and dependence on pesticides. Advise the agency with regard to the regulation of biostimulants, and recommend studies necessary for the performance of functions as established under the section. And then last, explore developing standards for an ag marketing program that sets standards for carbon capture, plastic use, and organic product selection. So that's significant authority, formidable authority. Secretary Moore has proposed that the board would be advising the secretary on policy related to pesticides, the budget for pesticide control, and challenges that the farming community faces, which is, and she referenced a section in the H434 4964C, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Michael, can I ask a question on that first part?
Yep.
Thank you. Number 6 says incentivize farming practices. Everything else there is sort of recommend, advise, explore, which are general types of terms. Am I taking incentivize to actually mean they would have control over money and be able to appropriate?
So there are already programs at the agency where money is available for alternative farming practices, for clean water practices, for working lands. You could probably get a proposal that would fit under working lands that would relate to farming practices looking to reduce pesticides. So I think that
Soil health.
Soil health.
Soil health and ecosystems.
So I think that there are programs that are already available to this board where they could recommend or using those programs incent practice looking to reduce the use and dependence on pesticides.
Thank you.
They don't have specific money appropriated to them for a grant program, but I think the agency has programs that are flexible enough that could be used for that type of incentive.
Okay. I just wondered whether it substantially expanded that or whether this is common practice now and it just sort of is calling it out. But I think you've answered the question. Thank you.
I think what it does is it specifically allows the agency to incent these types of practices with their existing programs. I mean, if you wanted to be really clear, you could, revise that and say provide incentives under existing agency funding programs that are looking, something like that.
No, I'm fine with that. You answered it to my satisfaction. Thank you.
Okay.
And we could double check with Carrie or Kanika if that's what you had in mind when you put number 6 in the draft or in the bill.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We just wanted to make sure that if there are recommendations within the group for programs that we can find a way either internally or, otherwise to kind of restructure things to make sure that we're not just recommending programs and then have no funding source for them, because then they'll never get off the ground.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Should I move on?
Sure.
So then you get to the board membership. The H434 has passed the House, has 14 members, and Secretary Moore's proposal has 6. There are 4 common board members among the two proposals. And really, there's probably 5 because Secretary Moore recommends a member of the farming community, and H434 has 3 members of the farming community, but specific to a sector. So what's kind of left out from Secretary Moore's proposal are the representatives from the Agency of Agriculture, the head of the agrochemical program, the water quality program person. And then it condenses the farming representatives from 3 to 1. So you've now basically addressed 5 of the other members, and she does not include the soil biologist or certified crop consultant. And then she does not include a representative from an organization involved in land conservation. And she does not include a member of the public knowledgeable in agricultural water management. So there's overlap, but there's not, there's significantly fewer people in Secretary Moore's proposal.
Well, the last year we were dealing, I believe, with something, maybe it was earlier this year. We had that crop management person come in and that explained how they do testing and the spreading of product on fields, and I would almost think that a person like that would be quite valuable on the board when if they got to talking about restricting a certain product. I would think that a person like that would be very helpful to explain, well, you don't put this stuff all over the farm. You only put it where it's needed to grow sustainable crops. I don't know. Have the committee members thought much about the makeup of this board? Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I know I've made this point a couple of times. B there says a member of the farming community practices organic agriculture. And then we have in I, a member of the public representing the dairy industry. I would very much like to see us even it up, so to speak, so that there's a farmer representing the dairy industry if we're going to have a farmer represent the organic group. That's just one thing, but I agree with you about what you just said too, Mr. Chair. I think the people who deal with those products on a day-to-day basis and know about them, I think should at least have a voice and could probably be very helpful.
Kanika?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to that. I think you're absolutely right. And we should either do a member of, and this is what Maddie from NOFA Vermont brought up in her testimony. I forget if it was here or on the House side, is that basically we should have a member of the public that represents organic, and then a member of the public that represents the dairy industry, because I think with individual farmers, opinions vary greatly, even within the sector. So having someone, from NOFA, for example, represent the organic industry as opposed to an individual farmer might be the better way forward. So that is something that we should definitely look into. And I was thinking in terms of having a crop consultant and a soil biologist, we could have both of them if we got rid of the land conservation position spot on the board. I think many people have brought up that it doesn't necessarily add a lot of value unless there's a specific topic, in which case we could have someone from that organization come in and speak to the specific topic that the group is looking at. So we could have both a crop consultant and a soil biologist, and then get rid of the land conservation position. And that's something that Graham brought up in his email to all of you last night.
Yeah. So you would suggest eliminating some and adding something different? Kanika, is that what you were just saying? I was reading a thing from Jared that he sent in regards to the bill.
So basically, I would say, one, clarify the language on the organic position and say a member of the public that represents the organic sector industry or organic farming practices. And then two, I would eliminate the it's currently letter M, a representative from an organization involved in land conservation. I would strike that and expand H, a soil biologist or certified crop consultant, to be both. Or we could get rid of a crop consultant and maybe put in a position related to what you had just mentioned, Senator Starr.
Yeah,
So I would agree with Kanika to take out the M. Well, not necessarily take out the land conservation piece and add a soil biologist. Take that out of H and put it into M kind of thing.
I would agree with that also.
so have you got that, Michael?
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on the makeup of that large board? Carrie, are you all set with that?
I am more or less, and I just wanted to sort of clarify a little bit about my yesterday's testimony. I know you did get an email from Jared. I did hear that they were upset. I guess what I was trying to be more specific about is the operational structure of the board is what, and that structure that came out of the House is what the other folks, the other groups didn't advocate for the structure that Julie proposed on the House side. And I know they're generally, there's still discussion they want to have about the bill. So if I misspoke yesterday, I apologize. I was just implying that the structure that was in the bill, they were generally supportive of and didn't give testimony on the structure that Julie proposed on the House side. And in further conversations with Julie, she would like to see the board shrink, but wasn't opposed to a board at the 9 or 10 person level. And if you did want to shrink the board, the Agency of Ag doesn't necessarily need 2 seats. So we could liaison with the Water Quality Division instead of having them at the table.
So you could, they would work right through the agency with any suggestion.
Yeah, and Senator Starr, the concept of having a crop consultant at the table was because of Tom Eaton's testimony that I did hear in your committee when he was talking about all the innovations in precision ag and the technology that they do use. I think people need to hear about that. And he had some great exposure to new technology and incredible ideas. So it is important to have somebody like Tom Eaton on this board. So I agree with you there. And if you do need to shrink it, the Agency of Ag only needs 1 seat at the table.
Yeah,
So Carrie, are you saying take out E?
I'd have to look, is that the water quality? That's Ryan Patch, basically, yeah. I wanted Ryan at the table to hear the discussions because he's on the Payment for Ecosystem Services board. He's on all these other groups. So I thought having him at the table would be good, but we can definitely do that behind the scenes instead of at the table.
So that would get us to 13, which is
What the current, yeah, and I think the current board is 12.
okay.
so is that a suggestive change, Brian, to delete E?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the committee think, Anthony and Corey, you got an opinion on that?
Excuse me, I would agree with removing it.
That delete
I'm
E?
fine removing it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other suggestive changes? Are we gonna have I leave I the way it is? Not just leave it open-ended, member of the public representing fruit, representing dairy, the dairy industry? What was your thinking behind that, Karen?
Okay, I'll take it, Carrie, on mute. Basically, with I, we were saying, and this is what Senator Collmore was bringing up as well, we just wanted to make different sectors represented at the table kind of equal in their representation. So
Yeah.
we just need to revise the language for the organic to make them for I, and the letter for organic is whichever one that one is, so that they can both
B. It's B.
B, thank you. So
So-
that we can make them on par.
And I don't really care one way or another whether it's a member of the public representing each of the sectors or an actual farmer. I mean, there's pros and cons, I think, to both ways, but I just wanted to point out that it should be even.
Yeah, I think the member of the public is the better way to go, just because of what both the people that testified on behalf of dairy a couple of days ago or last week, and then what Maddie said, which now I'm remembering is in the House side on organic. I think it's important to have, because there are differences in opinion depending on the farmer.
That's true. Okay.
Michael?
Could I ask a question about that? The agency's intent. I believe you could testified earlier that it was, I think it was Maddie who said that there should be an organization that kind of represents them.
I don't think she necessarily said organization, and I have to rewatch the House side testimony,
Okay.
but what she brought, the point she raised was that even within a sector, opinions vary greatly, and some people are more outspoken about one thing or care more about one thing because of their operation. So she just brought up having someone, a member of the public that represents the industry as a whole, might just be a better option, just that you're getting kind of the crux of the opinion as opposed to one person's opinion.
So one of the ways that the General Assembly has addressed that type of concern in the past is similar to what is in subdivision M, is a representative from an organization that represents persons who practice organic agriculture, who are in the dairy industry, or who is, so you can have either a member of the public, an actual farmer, or a member of an organization that represents those farmers. So I think you have another option there.
Okay, I don't want to
that-
misrepresent Maddie's opinion.
That's,
So
I don't want to either. I just,
I'll double check with her and
Right.
then maybe see where she's at and make sure that we're on
Sure.
the same page with that. But I think Senator Collmore's point is that if dairy is represented and organics represented, they should be represented kind of equally, regardless of what the language is.
sure.
Jackie, I see your hand. Do you have some input on this?
Thank you, Senator Starr. Jackie Folsom from Vermont Farm Bureau. Yes, we've been watching this conversation too, and we share Senator Collmore's concern about the public representing the dairy industry. It just is curious to me that B is, and you've had the conversation about possibly changing the direction of that, but is a member of the farming community, but I is a member of the public representing the dairy industry. You know, that could be a lobbyist for the dairy industry. It could be the CEO of DFA. It could be a wide variety of people. And I think just to make it clear, not only in I, but in J and K, actually, member of the public kind of leaves it wide open. I mean, if you're looking to make sure that those communities are represented, we would really like at least the language to be the same as B, because they're all members of a farming community with this kind of constituency. And I think it would make it more clear as to who might be appointed, as opposed, I mean, you've had folks come into the committee, and I'm not going to mention names, but have said they represent the dairy committee and talked about how awful it is to be a conventional dairy farmer. Leaving it open to a public representing this would almost give them the ability to be appointed. So I would just like consistency in how the seats are designated, and a member of the farming community who does dairy, does organic, does fruit and vegetable. We would just advocate that trying to make those seats consistently recognized would probably make the agricultural community feel a little better about that, if you don't mind the suggestion. Thank you.
Well, no, we like suggestions, and that's our process. Brian?
Thank you, Bobby. So let me just ask Jackie, because I thought Michael came up with a pretty good idea. If we took the language from M, which says a representative from an organization involved in, and made that a similar beginning point for conventional dairy, organic dairy, fruits and vegetables, and whatever the fourth category is, I've lost track of it. I keep scrolling back and forth between screens here. Would that satisfy what you see as your concern, Jackie?
Yes, I think so. The other issue and this is the first time I've looked at Secretary Moore's proposal, where she has just a member of the farming community. Boy, good luck with that one, because she's removed 4 seats that are existing in the House version of this bill, which we support. Trying to make that down to 1 would not work for us. But yes, I think that using the language from M would probably be a good way to solve this issue for us. Thank you.
So let me suggest that we do that, Mr. Chair. Wherever there is a specific reference made to a sector, that we use Michael's language that says a representative from an organization involved in, and then you can sort of fill in the sector. And that makes it even for everybody. And I think it also opens it up, as I think Michael said. That could be a farmer, an actual farmer. It could be a lobbyist. It could be somebody else. But I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, is that you could do that, Michael?
Yep.
On a run?
Mhm.
And I think I saw Gary shaking his head yes, so I think he might agree, and I think Kanika might too. It's a nice one.
Yeah, but if you,
Thank you, Senator. Our intent was to make it fair and balanced, and if there's language that helps us do that, we're very much in support of the committee heading in that direction.
well, yeah, I mean, I think I was skeptical of that big board, but what about the rest of the? I take it that we're going to go with the bigger board with these changes. Are there other members that are suggested here, or other people that we would want to adjust and change? Is there any other of those positions that we need to look at to change or to broaden or shorten? Anthony?
I still wish that we had somebody who has expertise in the pesticide impacts of pesticides on people and the environment. I mean, the only person we have related to health is the Commissioner of Health or designee, which I understand makes some sense, but I would like us to really have a person who understands pesticide impacts.
Had the agency thought about that part of it, Kanika?
Yes, we had, and that's a big part of it. And I think that's where we put in, that was the intent behind the environmental organization. So that we would have someone who knows the health impacts specifically from the Department of Health or AHS in general, and then someone from an environmental organization. And I'm open to making that more specific, or an environmental organization that works on toxics or something like that, if that makes you feel more comfortable, so that we have a very specific type of person on there. But that was the intent behind that bullet with the environmental impacts.
I guess, I mean, I would at least want to, excuse me, the idea of having someone representing an environmental group that deals with toxins or toxics would make me feel a little better. I mean, not to say that you phrasing it the way it is couldn't end up being somebody who has that, but it'd be nice to be able to specifically say that way somebody who's committed to dealing with toxics or toxins.
So could we broaden that position to include that? Michael, is there some language that how we could broaden that particular position to take in Anthony's concerns?
Could you clarify which position? Is it F that you're looking at, the Commissioner of Health, or is it
We're looking at N,
N?
making N have some language that refers to toxins or toxics or pesticides.
Sure. I mean, you could clarify that it's a member. Well, you have option. A representative from an organization with expertise in the management of pesticides or integrated pest management. But that might not necessarily be an environmental advocacy organization.
Right.
Or you could say,
I'm more envisioning an environmental group, a person representing an environmental group that deals with pesticides or deals with toxics. I don't know whether it seems to be but I'm not sure whether the word pesticide or word toxics will be better.
Right. So that's what I was going to offer, a representative from an environmental advocacy group that has expertise or experience in the management, or I would want to play a little bit about with what they have expertise or experience in, because they don't actually necessarily manage toxic substances.
Right.
No.
So I'd want to look at that a little bit, but I can play with that language.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the L member on the board, a member of the public knowledgeable of agricultural water management. Do you think that is more important, or having Ryan on this crew would be more important, with his knowledge and ability and soil health and all of that? Because we've kicked that position out. Brian, you're muted. Brian?
Yep.
Okay. See, we eliminated E, right? And that's where Ryan is the person that would be in E, and we eliminated E, but down below there in L, we've got a person, public knowledgeable in agricultural water management. I don't know if, Ryan's he's pretty knowledgeable in all this stuff, from water to soil health to the whole 9 yards. And we want to make sure we have the right folks here. Was there a particular reason for Al, Carrie, or Nika? What type of a person were you figuring to fill with L, letter L?
I mean, I guess you're right. It is fairly redundant. We could have either or. I just wanted to make sure that when we were looking at membership that we had kind of balance in terms of where, because I wanted people who are on all ends of pesticide use and kind of some of the final end is water and water sources. So we were just thinking someone who is involved in water conservation or something like that. But I think that's a great point. We can strike that and keep the agency position.
Well,
Yeah.
I just, if you're a member of the committee, you have a lot more influence on what's right and what's wrong than if you're maybe in charge of ecosystems and the committee calls them in to ask them questions. I don't know, what's the committee think about moving that or fixing that language so it could be either or? Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to see Ryan back in, actually, now that you mention it, Mr. Chair. And I assume he was going to be the person that was originally in
E.
Yeah, in E. So I guess we could either put E back in or leave it out, but somehow word the other one L, which might include him. I don't know how to do that.
I mean, it's probably simpler to just strike L and keep E in. And also, when we go through more of the language, I was just going to put in a point further down about saying, just to clarify people's expectations about how important testimony and people coming in to talk to the group experts, subject matter experts, is going to be for this whole process. And so if there is someone who's very knowledgeable in water issues and how they relate to pesticides, it would be great to have them come in and speak specifically with the group about that. So whenever there is a position removed or recommending putting a position in, we can always clarify that they're going to come in on specific issues that are related to their expertise.
Well, I think the committee would miss Ryan's expertise if he wasn't at the table. And because if you have the right ingredients and you have good soil health, your water is going to be a lot cleaner that leaves that property, and it's going to absorb that soil's going to absorb a lot more water if it's in good health, and that would slow down water contamination. So Michael, is there anything there that you could work with to try to keep E alive and still mention something in regards to to water management or water quality? I think we got water quality already up in E anyway, so.
Right.
So would the committee go with striking M and putting E back in?
I think you mean L.
So here's
yeah.
a point. Here's a point to consider. The
Yeah.
public members who are not serving because of their position are limited in their terms, right? So if you want Ryan to be on this board, as long as Ryan's a member of the agency, then you probably want to keep E, because the ex officio members, the people that serve solely because of their governmental function, they don't have term limits. So if you want Ryan on the board, as long as the board exists, or whomever may be Ryan's successor, you want to keep E. But if you want there to be opportunity for either Ryan or a member of an environmental advocacy organization, then I could play with the language. I could play with the language in L.
Yeah, yeah, so we'll put he back in.
Go back to 14.
And Michael's gonna play with the language in L then.
Oh, so wait, do you want E back in and you want L?
Well, I think we could eliminate L. And so put E back in and scratch L.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, any other comments in regards to the board?
I don't think so.
The
No,
membership or the board overall?
the makeup of the board. So we're good for now with the suggested changes. Okay, Michael,
Yeah.
we'll
right, so-
go ahead.
Should I go on to the rest of the side by side?
Yeah,
Okay. I just have to find it. All right, so then there's the organization of the board. In 434, the Secretary of Agriculture appoints all members. The Secretary of Ag is the chair. There are 3-year terms, but non-ex officio members are limited to 3 terms. Secretary Moore's proposal was silent on board organization. Again, she probably has ideas, but she sent an email. So that could be fleshed out if you wanted to have Secretary Moore flesh that out.
yeah. Everybody happy with the way 434 is put in there? Yeah. Okay, Michael.
Then with regard to the subject of advisory panel, Secretary Moore proposed 2 specific advisory panels with authority to create additional ones to carry out the board's duties. The 2 specific ones were the Pesticide Advisory Panel and the Clean Water and Ecosystem Services Advisory Panel. 434 does not have specific reference to advisory panels, but it's my recollection that the agency indicated that they may use advisory panels.
Yeah, Kanika or Carrie, could
Yeah.
you fill us in on that, your thinking with that?
We were just saying because this board is kind of a new concept and we didn't want it to be limited in statute in terms of how it would be organized. Like we could totally do advisory panels if we all meet and realize that that's a more productive way to go about doing it. But we didn't want it to be so rigid right off the bat in terms of having those panels as a mandate, because we didn't know if that would ultimately be the best way forward. This is a little bit of a trial and error because it's such a new concept. So that was our thinking there in terms of not putting that in off the bat. But if we do see that that's something that the members of the board want and that would be more efficient, then coming back, we can amend the statute so that it mandates that, or we can just do it internally and report back to the legislature on that.
Corey?
Bobby, on this one, I don't know if this is the right spot to consider it, but I've asked this question a few times about I think it's the Seed Advisory Committee, and I just our Seed Review Committee. Since we're kind of looking at these panels, it's all encompassing. I'd like us to see a sunset that in this bill, and so I just think it kind of fits into the scope of work that this board's going to do. So I don't know if we want to either make it an advisory panel here, or again, leave it for something for this whole board to look and design how they want to do it.
So under the advisory panel, you wanted to put a sunset?
I'm
Or the
thinking this,
whole-
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily needed overall with this new board in place and what they're looking at. But I don't know if this is the appropriate place in the bill to do it. If not, Michael might have a better place to put that. But I'd like for us to consider that sunset.
Do you have any suggestions on that, Michael?
Well, the seed review committee is a existing committee. If you wanted it to no longer exist, you would have to repeal that statutory section, and I'm trying to find that statutory section right now. That's really up to you. If you want it, if you want to consolidate its authority underneath the Agriculture Innovation Board, that's really kind of that's up to you. It's a policy decision.
Yeah, Corey, what is your thinking or reasoning to either change or put a sunset on it or whatever? Would you want this innovation board to look at it?
Yeah, I think this innovation board would come into their jurisdiction. I don't think we need two different
Group.
committees. What I always worry in state government is we have too much redundancy in things.
So what is the purpose of the seed review committee? Corey or Kanika, you must look after that. Could that be part of this board's, this new board's jurisdiction and duty?
Or, it certainly could. Currently, the Seed Advisory Committee, we had proposed that the folks accepting the liability of using these products make the decision about whether or not they're right for Vermont. Giving the board that authority and making that recommendation to the secretary is just having more folks at the table to make the decision. That's not a bad thing.
So the board, the way we have proposed the structure of the board, would this new innovation board have the expertise and the ability to do that without having another board or more members to the board? Is this board of 13 or 14, is it have the expertise the way we have it developed to fulfill the obligations that you think are on the seed review board at this time?
I think it's possible. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I can read to you the members of the seed board if you would like.
Yeah, that would be good.
The seed review committee consists of or is composed of the Secretary of Agriculture, the certified commercial agricultural pesticide applicator, an agronomist or a relevant crop specialist from UVM or Vermont Technical College, a licensed seed dealer, and a member of a farming sector affected by the new genetically engineered seed.
So it
Well-
sounds to me like there's already 3 of those people on this innovative board.
Definitely, I would say 2, most likely. I'm not sure where you get the third.
Well, you mentioned the secretary of,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, there you go. Yeah, there's the third.
Yeah.
Yep.
so I would support Corey's idea.
Well, I mean, it's kind of crazy to have two two boards if we can get away with one and accomplish the same objectives. We got the soil, the crop management person that's on the big board of 12 or 13. So Michael, we would have to load those somehow, some language in this bill that would bring that authority over to 434, and then put a sunset in the bill toward the end that would get rid of the board. And what we would use for an explanation is that we, move the duties to this new innovation board.
Well, I think that is definitely an option. I think the key question is, do you want the Ag Innovation Board to do the same duties as the Seed Review Committee? Because a key part of the Seed Review Committee's authority is that they must approve of the sale, distribution, or use of a new genetically engineered seed prior to sale, distribution, or use in the state. And I could do exactly what you just said, Secretary, or you could do, the General Assembly could do what you just said and sunset the Seed Review Committee and move the authority. I just need to know what authority you would want to move. Or you keep the Seed Review Committee, but you say that the Agriculture Innovation Board is the one that performs the functions of that committee. So it's really a little more of a mechanical thing right now. How do you want this mechanics to work? Sunset the Seed Review Committee and give the Ag Innovation Board its authority, but what authority? Or leave the Seed Review Committee in place and just say the Ag Innovation Board is the one that will fulfill its duties. So it's a little bit of it's a mechanical thing, and I just need your preference for how to do that.
Yeah, can we see how Gary feels about that?
Sure. Carrie or Kanika, how would that work best to be able to perform these duties? Do you feel that?
As long as the state has a tool to sort of circumvent, can you hear me okay?
The little light.
Okay, as long as the state has a tool to make those decisions, we are confident that we have enough, however you want to do it. Basically, the issue we were hoping to protect the state against is sort of new dicamba tolerant seed varieties. That's coming for field corn. The propensity for dicamba to drift has been seen all over the country. It would impact orchards and vineyards that are near cornfields as well as other agriculture. As long as the state has a mechanism where we can collectively decide if we want to accept that liability and use that technology in the state. The Seed Committee is one way to do it. The Ag Innovation Board is another. I think you'll have a broader crosscut of input if you stick that authority with the Ag Innovation Board, and it's better government as far as I'm concerned. As long as there's a mechanism to decide if we want to accept the liability of using that technology.
Well, so, and that, I guess that's why I just soon moved the authority to the Innovation Board and the responsibilities.
I agree.
That makes sense.
I think that makes sense to me too.
Okay. So I'm going to sunset the seed review committee and move the authority to the Ag Innovation Board.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I think Carrie was right on, if you've got 14 people from all aspects of soil health and water quality and farming and all of that sitting around the table, they're certainly gonna reach a positive, the best decision probably possible for a public group. Kanika, yes, go ahead.
My one concern, and I think you'll hear this from other people who will potentially testify on this topic, is that adding more response, we meet 4 times as a board in theory. Some people might raise the point that the scope is too broad, and I, having not experienced, again, like I said, a lot of this is going to be trial and error. So having not experienced running a board or being part of the board or whatever, we don't really know. So that could be something we put in, but when we report back to the legislature, it might be that they recommend taking it back out, only because it does seem like right now the board has to do a lot in a short amount of time. That's the one concern I have.
Right, the way that's set up though, Kanika, is that they must meet 4 times. They could meet 6 if they wanted to,
Right.
or couldn't they have a subcommittee if they so chose to look at a working group to look at a certain aspect of it and then report back to the full board to make a decision? Yeah, so I mean, there's quite a lot of flexibility, and if there isn't, we ought to build it into the bill so that they can function. You take a large school board, a supervisory union board like mine that's got 20 people on it. You have subgroups there that look after certain aspects, report to the big board, and then the big board's the one that makes it work or not work and turns it down or approves it. So any other, Carrie?
So these, the GMO corn seed came out, the dicamba tolerant soybean seeds came out. It's every 5 to 7 years that a new seed trait that comes to the market. So it's not a tremendous amount of work, and certainly something the board or an advisory panel of the board can manage.
Yeah. Well, I think we're good to go with that suggestion from Corey. Okay, Michael.
Okay. Okay, so there are additional provisions in the side-by-side. The board, under 434, the board's required to report annually to the General Assembly. They're required to propose an annual budget, and they're required to survey farmers across the state to understand challenges faced by farmers. Secretary Moore's recommendation, I believe, is the same, but more in a condensed text. She says that they should advise the secretary, and she said that there should be a required report to the legislature, and then she references budget and challenges. So I effectively think she is recommending the same additional provisions as what is in 434. And then under 434, the board assumes the authorities of the Pesticide Advisory Council. It was unclear to me from Secretary Moore's email whether or not she was recommending that or proposing that or not. So I just don't know.
Yep. Board. I wonder what are the specific amendments to the statutes provided in council authorities?
So
and duties.
It's in H434 as passed the House. Currently, the Pesticide Advisory Council has several duties, including recommending to the Secretary rules for pesticide management, record keeping requirements for pesticide dealers, reporting requirements. Basically, they recommend to the agency provisions for the regulation of pesticides and treated articles.
Yeah. Any comment on that tail end of the bill?
Okay.
And what is the start date? Is it July 1? Because there's no mention, effective date July 1, Michael?
The act actually takes effect January 1, 2022, but the ability to appoint members to the new board goes into effect on July 1, 2021. So there's 6 months in order to find appointees to the board. It's my experience recently that it's really hard to find appointees, and I think 6 months is probably a suitable time period for the secretary to do that.
Yeah. Everybody agreement on that? Yep. I see we still have Jackie. Jackie, are you still on the line?
I am, Senator.
Yeah. You've been listening. Did you have any other comments that you wanted to make in regards to the proposal changes proposed changes that we've suggested today?
No, I think Farm Bureau is good. I appreciate Senator Parent's intent to try to reconstruct this board so that there are fewer independent groups out there that are all doing the same thing. I think we all get bogged down in sometimes we forget how many committees are out there and advisory councils, and in light of the fact that we're having so much trouble finding people to sit on these boards, I think it's a great idea to combine as many things as you can in here. We're supportive of H434, mostly as it came through from the House, except for those challenges with the seats. And I think you all have corrected those issues. So we would be in support of your discussion today with the changes that Mr. O'Grady would be making. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Committee, we could, unless you have some other suggestions on changes, we'll have Michael work on this over the weekend and Monday. And do you know your schedule for next week, Michael?
I think Linda's got me locked in a few days, a few mornings. Yep, I'm in on Tuesday at 10:15, it looks like, or then I'm in on Wednesday at 9, and then I'm in on Thursday at 9.
Boy, she really hogged the time, didn't she? If that's a problem, Michael, with your other obligations and duties, just let us know. But so when could we? This is one of our last bills, and that we're going to need a lot of work on, I think, and we've done some this morning. Chris hasn't. He had to take one of his children to the doctor, so he hasn't been with us. But he might want to weigh in. Would Tuesday would Tuesday work for you, Michael?
Definitely. Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll plan to do a review of Michael's changes on Tuesday. So if you folks want to be with us, of course, you're more than welcome. Kanika?
If Michael is making some edits, there were just a couple things in the H434 as it stands that I think are worth looking at, just rewording, not really changing any sort of major conceptual concepts. Yeah, but I think we should clarify some of the language because it's a little bit confusing. And I don't know if I should share those ideas now, or if you want to do a walkthrough of the entire bill and then I can share them the next time we discuss it.
How much time do you have this morning, Michael?
I go to Senate Natural at 11:15.
Oh, well, I think what you could do, Kanika, because if it isn't going to change the intent of the bill, unless the committee wants to sit through it, I don't think there's a need for us to listen to you and Michael talk about, whether it should be this word or that word. And so would that work for you, Michael?
It's fine with me.
Yeah, you can just send those changes to Michael and he can incorporate them and when we go through the bill on Tuesday, he'll tell us what you suggested. And you'd better do a good job because we'll blackball you from doing that in the future. No, that's fine. Kanika, just work with Michael offline and then we'll review those Tuesday.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else on this for the committee? Michael, the bill that, thank you all. Let's see, on the Humane Officer 421, I don't think you drafted that.
That
But
was not me. That was Bryn, I believe.
Brett, yeah, and we still got that one hanging out there. One bill that we haven't talked a lot about that you drafted was S83. And I know you put a great deal of time, I believe you did, into drafting that. And that's Senator
Engels bill?
Engels' bill. And we haven't done a lot of work on that because I think it's going to require a lot of time and we haven't had much free time to deal with that. And then we've got that task force crew. We finally got another member from the House. Joe Bradley has agreed to serve on that. And we got to get going on that particular issue. But have any of you given much thought to S83 and the time and how that would work? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Russ's bill that would add a nickel to the purchase of any dairy, right?
Yeah,
Generally, yes.
Well, I thought about it, and I understand what he's trying to do, and I support him for trying to get money in the pockets of our farmers. But I think that's going to be a big lift this year. I mean, we can put it on the wall till next year, I guess, right?
yeah, I mean, we could, I haven't figured out, how to make it work. He wants to do it at the distributor level, but, when you sell, they make cottage cheese over at Booth Brothers or whatever, and that goes on the truck, and the truck's crossing, and I don't know how you do that. Had you guys talked about that, Michael?
It's, yeah, but the issue is and I believe you talked about, the committee talked about this, the varying, either SKUs or weights used for these different products, because they vary in packaging from your tiny little yogurt cup all the way up to, say, a gallon of milk. And how do you find a fungible unit in which to assess to assess the assessment? That to me is the hard thing. You could go back up the chain to the milk handler purchasing from the producer, but then you have that issue of the milk handler passing that back to the producer, right? And that's the concern there. And it's always raised that the handler is just gonna, because of the way that the milk moves in Vermont through the co-ops, it'll just be reassessed back to the producer. So though it's difficult, it really is. And frankly, to make it work, you probably need more detail on those points, whether or not it's going to be a scaled system based on product, so that you can try to find equity across the products, or some way to establish an order or rule about assessing it to the milk handler. I tried. I did my best on S83. I really did. But there's questions that probably need to be fleshed out further.
I
couldn't figure out how. I mean, that's why we haven't dealt with it. Is in my own mind, I haven't been able to figure out how you take the little cup of yogurt and figure out on a 100-weight how much milk has actually gone in there to pay the farmer, and say nothing about collecting the money when they pump out 10 trailer loads of milk a day into yogurt. How many of those little yogurt cups stay home, and how many leave? And I mean, it was a bummer. I don't know. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you and Michael have outlined this pretty well. There's a lot left to work on in this bill. I think the intent was great. I'm all for getting farmers more money in their pocket directly, not screwing around with another layer of bureaucracy on top of it. But I just don't think we have time left this session to really dig into this bill. But I would be fine with taking it up next fall or in the next January and see whether we can't come up with a way to do it. Because you point out some really interesting pitfalls, Mr. Chair, and so did Michael. I can't figure out a system that's going to work for every single product that we're talking about. even if we could figure out the, the liquid, the milk, the other products, as you say, they go across state lines. How are you gonna, I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Well, and the other thing is, Cabot Agrimart sells and makes a heck of a lot of cheese and butter and the whole 9 yards. Well, how are they going to feel about putting a price on their products? And DFA say their customers are all in mass, so everything other than some of their stuff goes to Ben and Jerry's, but that goes all over the. Are they going to want their farmers dividing up this premium with other farmers that their milk goes elsewhere? I mean,
Yep.
it's. I'm sure those guys are going to come in and beat up on us if we haven't got a system figured out to make that fair. So we'll. Anthony and Corey, you got any thoughts on that?
I agree with Brian. I just think we need more time to potentially look at this, and I don't think we have the runway this year to just give it its due need.
Because I know Michael and Engels has spent a lot of time, and I don't want to just set it aside because we ought to be trying to figure it out, but I do think we're gonna have to wait until next season and go for it. Anything else, Michael, that you have that we haven't done, or think of anything that we haven't done that we should be doing?
Where are you on the H420, the miscellaneous agricultural subjects bill?
I think we're in pretty good shape. I think we went through that quickly with you one day, and that's going to be our main focus once we get rid of 434 on Tuesday. See, the miscellaneous bill, we want to be the last bill in case we've forgotten something or we need to tack on something. The same thing on Carolyn's side, if she has something that they really need to get done, she's going to give it to us to tack on. So next week, after we get by Tuesday and get rid of 434, that's really the main bill we got left besides that humane bill.
Okay.
And so like Wednesday, maybe we'll start talking about that. And we haven't been told yet when we're going to shut down the morning committees, but I would presume that it'll be at the end of the month. And then the 2 weeks in May will be just cleanup time and approach time and all that.
Okay.
But that should work, shouldn't it, Michael?
Yeah, it should work.
I haven't got my little calendar here in front of me. But we should have all of next week, right? Because today's only the 15th, so we should have all of next week and a little bit maybe of that following week. But so we've got plenty of time to work on the miscellaneous bill.
Okay.
Anything else for Michael, guys?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, if not, well, thanks a lot, Michael, for being with us this morning. I think we did pretty good on 434. And if you think of anything that we've missed on that, Tuesday, let us know and
Okay,
keep it handy so we can throw it in or throw it in anyways, and if bring it to our attention and we'll vote to leave it in or take it out.
okay,
Good?
good.
Yeah, okay, well, thanks, Michael. And does any of the committee have anything else they want to bring up this morning?
Nope, I don't think so.
Corey?
I'm good. I
Yeah.
appreciate everyone's support on the seed council or whatever.
We ought to leave a note on here somehow, though, to notify Pearson that he missed the whole show and just swim along behind us.
Maybe we don't, and he'll be like, "How do I get in?"
Okay, so we'll call it a day and we'll see you at 1 o'clock